with Candace Bester. This is episode 4, and tonight I welcome yet another very, very special guest. I feel so blessed at the people that I'm meeting and the people that I'm communicating with. And I always say there's no such thing as coincidences, only synchronicities. And me meeting Rebecca has been a true blessing. So before we welcome her into the room, I'd like you to I'd like you to know a little bit more about her. She has a whole lot of accolades. Her full name is Rebecca Shake, and she is an ex-South African, although she has been living in the UK for 20 years. And for me, that's way too long. She should have been back already. She is a level 2 instructor at Aware Parenting, and she's also the founder of Flourishing Childhood. So she supports parents and organizations to be attachment aware and to be trauma informed. She's also training to be a play therapist, and she's on the executive committee of the International Attachment Network. So I'm so honored because there are so many things that we say the same, we think the same, and I think we share a brain. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Rebecca. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi, thank you so much, Candace, for that lovely introduction.
Well, it's all true. Rebecca, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, thank you for sharing about the aware parenting. That's probably one of the most important things that have happened in my life. I suppose the other important thing is that I'm a mother to 2 children. One is 8 going on 9 and the other is 5. And I came across aware parenting when my daughter, my first baby, was about 9 months old, because I just this baby came along and I didn't know what to do or how to support her, because she cried and cried. She never slept. She had what they called was reflux. And I was absolutely exhausted. And all these kind of other books I was being given, like The Baby Whisperer and what's that lady who makes you stick to
Sleep
all the routines? Those sort of ones. Which all made me feel highly stressed. And then actually I went home to South Africa to visit my mom, and a lovely lady we know gave me this book called The Aware Baby, and I literally couldn't put it down. And what was so nice about it, it's written by a developmental psychologist who's Dr. Salter, who developed the Aware Parenting approach, and it just made so much sense to me, and helped me to really, really think more deeply about children and their behaviour, and led me to be an instructor that I am. And before that, I was a teacher for 17 years.
There we go, another thing in common. So, Rebecca, what is aware parenting?
So, as I said, it was developed by Dr. Salter, who is the founder of the Aware Parenting philosophy. She lives in California, and she's got 2 grown children, and I can't remember how many grandchildren at the moment. I think it's 3, who are also grown up now. And she basically, when her little one was little, also again had books that just didn't really make sense, and so she decided to write her own books. So she's written 5 books, which we can share later on, and she has 3 main aspects of the philosophy. The first aspect is that of attachment style parenting, and what she means by that is just really the deep connection we have with our children. I'm sure many of you have heard of attachment theory. It's our first relationships we have that then impact the rest of our relationships. And what she suggests at that sort of very, very young age, if possible, natural childbirth, co-sleeping, breastfeeding on demand, all those sort of very natural support we can give our babies and children. And then, of course, the attachment continues through the rest of our life. And the second part of aware parenting is that of non-punitive discipline. So that is my favorite part, because obviously I come from South Africa, where rewards and punishments are rife, as with the rest of the world. And then I was a teacher for 17 years, and I used, hundreds of stickers and loads of praise and lots of timeouts. And then came across something completely different. And when you learn about non-punitive discipline, it actually makes so much sense. And so that's a big part of aware parenting. So it's basically the lack of not using rewards and punishments within your parenting. And then there's a third aspect of aware parenting, and that is this kind of natural capacity that children have to heal trauma or stress that occur in their lives. And the three ways they do it is through crying. I'm sure we experience a lot of that. But another way is tantrums. So it's just a very natural process for children to get rid of like stress and trauma that happens in their lives. It's by the huge tantrums they have, those things we find really difficult to manage. And then a beautiful way is through laughter. So Dr. Salter talks a lot about how we can do these beautiful games with our children, and all the laughter can also heal stressful things in children's lives. And that, in a nutshell, is aware parenting, but obviously it's much bigger than that.
Okay, so let's unpack those one at a time. But before we go there, I feel compelled that I want to just say, there's quite a few people that follow me that are on my groups, and they are co-parenting with exes, and maybe they have the kids half the time. Maybe they don't have them as much as what they would like. And so they might be listening now and be thinking to themselves, you know what? I hardly see my child, so it's not going to make any difference if I do something different. But I think it's important to note that it's little seeds that you plant, no matter how much time you have with them, that it is very important for them to know that it will make a difference. The next thing, and I always say this on my podcast, is I am not here to berate how we were raised. However, my famous saying is from Albert Einstein: if you, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we've been raised with black and white thinking as well, and it's either this or that. So sometimes it is a bit uncomfortable, but it's that uncomfortableness that I feel that's where the growth lies for me. So when I hear something new and it's completely different to what I've ever known, that's the time when I'm really open-minded and I say to myself, okay, so this is uncomfortable. It's maybe because it's something new that I'm learning. So I just want to set the stage before we go any further. And I really want to paint the picture of, so what is the alternative? If we continue to be doing what we have been taught to do, if we continue to punish children, if we continue to use the reward systems, so what is the, can we paint the picture of if we continue doing what we're doing, what we're going to be creating?
Well, I think it's really interesting to actually look at how Dr. Salter explains different types of discipline. So there's basically 4 types of discipline. There's authoritarian, and within that you get the authoritarian violence. So this is when you hit your children. And then you also get the authoritarian where you may not hit them, but you're using loads of punishments and time out and your power over them. And then the next type of discipline that you could use is permissive. So that's when, just let your children do whatever they want. And then the last type, which is what Dr. Salter suggests, is more democratic, which is much harder. And it's all the things we'll be talking about today. But basically what happens with authoritarian is that you as a parent win and your children lose. But what happens later on is that our children rebel. And so there's much more disconnection. They might not want to be with us. And also you lose that power because that power is not going to be there forever. And so and that disconnection is what we really don't want. We want to continue being connected to our children throughout life, not just when they're children. And then with the permissive, it's a bit of the opposite. The children win and the parents lose. And again, what happens is there's disrespect that happens between the children. They no longer respect their parents. They don't listen. And actually, we lose that beautiful attachment that we want to create with them.
So it's so interesting because when I was teaching, and I thought that I was like ahead of the game and conscious and aware, I went from the punishment to the rewards, and I used the rewards a lot. So I'd love to speak about that a little bit because, how can that possibly be, how can that cause damage?
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because at least you're not punishing your children. But what Dr. Salter says is that actually the lack of a reward feels like a punishment. So even while you are offering these rewards, when you're saying, oh, well, you can't have it, it's like a punishment for children. And also what I really, really wanted for my children, is for this intrinsic motivation to do something. So I don't want them, I'm not going to be there when they're 25 years old going, now you need to wash your dishes and now you need to clean your clothes. I want them from themselves to be able to do their own stuff, to help others. And if I'm constantly forcing them to do those things, they're not developing this intrinsic motivation to be able to do it for themselves. Actually, I've got a lovely example today. Like I got home, I went out just to do something, and I came back and I went for a swim. That's what I did. And my husband had to come in the office a little bit early to start his meeting. And I got in, and they had hoovered the lounge and the kitchen, and my 5-year-old was doing the dishes. No, nobody asked them to do that, and that was just out of their own intrinsic love, because they know, it's nice to tidy up and want to do something for me. And in our house, we don't have like a chore chart or awards. We kind of like have jobs to do. Which ones would you like to do? And it doesn't always go well, obviously, but it's that beautiful intrinsic motivation that I really want them to have. Actually, I told you an example, didn't I, the other day, when we chatted briefly, Candace, about my daughter, because even praise can be a reward. And my two had brushed their teeth, and my eldest had brushed hers for longer. And stupidly, I said, which is very unusual for me, I said, oh, Nina's done the best. Brushing today, and my 5-year-old fell on the floor and she was having a massive old meltdown, and she's better than me. And I was like, no, that's not what I meant. I actually meant to say longer. And then my 8-year-old said, Mom, that's why we don't say good, to everybody, because it just doesn't make them feel very good. I was like, yes. That's it.
It is so funny. I see that with my youngest often. If I give my other child a compliment, he internalizes and he says things like, so if I'll say, oh, you've worked so hard today, thank you for your effort, then he'll go, oh, that means I didn't put in an effort. So that's all their own stuff, how they internalize it and everything else. But I want to make this more practical for people for a minute with regards to rewards. When you are raised with rewards, in my own personal opinion, you become adults who are constantly looking for outside validation. You become adults who are posting things on social media, looking at the likes, and when you don't get them, you feel depleted. You feel not good enough. And the thing is, that's not up to you, and that's not in your control. So teaching children to acknowledge themselves, teaching children to give themselves a high five, to say, I can't, well done, Candace, you did a good job, as opposed to waiting for other people to do that. And the other thing is, when you're in the classroom, the teacher's got, 25, 30 kids in the class, and she might be having like a few that stand out for her. But when she's constantly praising those few, the kids who aren't getting praised are internalizing that as, I'm not as good as, what if? Where in actual fact, if they could just learn to validate themselves, they'll be like, they wouldn't even notice it. So for me, the rewards thing is a very big thing, and learning to acknowledge ourselves, especially because it's uncomfortable for us as adults. I don't know how often you meet adults who you give them a compliment and they just brush it off. You'll say to them, oh, you look so pretty in that dress. And they'll go, oh, no, this old thing. No, this is a hand-me-down. So I believe that if we want to have a good self-esteem, if we want to feel good about ourselves, it's not arrogance. We need to learn to acknowledge ourselves and not wait for the rewards from outside. Absolutely. Okay, so that brings me to our next question. If there is no rewards, and there's no punishment, what is possibly left?
So actually what Dr. Salter has written a whole book about, which is amazing, is attachment play. And so we use a lot of that in our house, and it's not easy because if you are tired and stressed and you're not feeling very playful yourself, it's very hard to want to play, but it's so much easier than, moaning, nagging, constantly on their case about something. But you can use this beautiful, beautiful, natural language that children have. That is their language. In fact, there's a lady called Catherine Purvis, and she had a quote, and it's something like, children, you have to give them 400 repetitions to remember something unless you do it through play, and it was something like 8.
Wow.
And so it's this lovely connection you can have. And I think I gave the example the other day, I was chatting to you about toothbrushing. And my 5-year-old, still her favorite game since she was about 2. I used to take the toothbrush and I'd go, do you want to go in there? And the toothbrush would go, oh, no, not in there. It's disgusting. And then I'd go inside and then I'd be like, oh, no, did you eat peas today? No, don't make me stay in here. And it's just, she still just laughs and laughs. And then I'm laughing as well, rather than brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. And it's just moan, 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 moan. So it's kind of a together connection, which isn't always easy to do, I know, but there is another way. And I think, and also us just being able to take a step back, you know. I think you mentioned earlier on about a tantrum that went on earlier on and how you just took that step back and saw what was going on, the lay of the land, you know.
I'd actually like to speak about that for a second. So I've started to read all these books that you're speaking about, and I've got a highlighter out and I'm highlighting my hand off. And one of the things that stood out for me is to just notice how uncomfortable you are as a parent when your child is having a meltdown, when your child is crying, and just give them the space to feel their feelings. And it wasn't like 2 hours after I'd read those exact lines, my little one had a complete meltdown, and it was 15 minutes before I had to leave and I had to be somewhere. So I did. I stood back and I watched how uncomfortable my son was, my daughter was. I was uncomfortable. Everybody wanted to fix it. Everybody wanted to make him stop. We wanted to do anything to just make it stop. And so I just took him aside, loved him, let him finish crying, and he carried on for quite a while. And the rest of his day was amazing because it was like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, it's really so beautiful once you understand more about it.
And why is it so important for kids to properly feel their emotions?
Well, I think there's a lot of research now about our nervous systems and understanding actually as a nervous system, we store stress and trauma in there. You know, every little thing that happens goes into our bodies. And if we don't allow our children to release these emotions, just as we don't allow ourselves to, it just gets more and more trapped. And actually, Dr. Salter has this amazing sort of idea. It's called the broken cookie phenomenon. And basically, it's this kind of idea that our children, you know, over the course of the day, let's say this is a really bad day for Paul. He wakes up in the morning and, you know, his mom's made him his worst breakfast. And then he goes to school and his teacher's not there. And then his mum fetches him and he's hoping his dad was going to fetch him. And anyways, then he gets home and he has his dinner, which was his worst dinner in the whole world. And there's one cookie left in the jar. And his mum says, oh, you can have the cookie. And he takes it out and it's broken. And then suddenly Paul is on the floor and he's absolutely lost his marbles. You know, you're looking like, it's just a broken cookie, but it's not actually. It's actually an accumulation of stuff that happens in our children's lives, and what they need to do is to release it. And I mentioned to you about an amazing man called Peter Levine, and he's developed a sort of therapy, I suppose you would call it. It's called somatic experiencing. And his whole way of working is allowing us to release stress and trauma from our bodies, because that's where we store everything that happens in our bodies. And he shows this amazing video of a polar bear who's been darted in the wild. And so it has a very stressful time. And then you see this polar bear coming out of the effects of the dart. And you see it just really shaking, like the whole body just completely shaking. And then he takes this breath and then he starts breathing again. And actually, we all have that capacity. But what do? We distract. Or we say, here, have another cookie, or stop crying, here's a sweet, or, you know, all these different things we do to stop ourselves from feeling our feelings, whereas actually children just so naturally just know how to let it all out. But it is very difficult, obviously, to be with those big feelings.
I have 2 questions that are popping to mind. And one of them is, so what if I'm a parent who can say, you know what, my child hasn't really experienced trauma. Like we together family and our children are like really well balanced. They do well at school and they really haven't had a lot of trauma. How could this be beneficial for those? What advice do you have on that?
I think we all have levels of stress. As I saw that little example I just gave of Paul's day, like that may not feel stressful to you, but actually for that child, that was stressful, all those things. And also, we all have different nervous systems. So we've had different things that have happened to us. So for example, my daughter had birth trauma. We had moved house the day before she arrived, all these different things. And, there's a lovely man called Daniel Siegel, and he's created a diagram, and it shows sort of our window of tolerance. And some people's tolerance is so narrow, so we dip easily into that nervous system where we, need to let tantrums out, or we need to cry. And some people have just wider nervous systems, and so that means their window of tolerance means they don't dip in there as easier. So each child is so different, and each of us are so different. Can I just add one thing in there actually about something which Dr. Salter talks about, that we develop if we don't have we aren't given the opportunity to release our emotions. What happens is we end up developing control patterns. So these are things that we do to stop us from feeling, and we all do them. I mean, I did it yesterday. I ate a whole bowl of ice cream, in the fridge, and some custard. Some people do excessive exercise, screen time on your mobile phone, social media. And it's the same with our children. They develop ways of suppressing their emotions. And so I think what aware parenting really invites is for us to allow our children to express their emotions, so that they don't need to find these ways of stopping them from coming out.
And I think you've used some of the healthy examples with regards to exercise and that. But for me, the biggest thing is that suppressed emotions leads to dis-ease, which is disease, which is one of the biggest causes of disease. And then alcohol abuse, drug abuse, depression, anxiety, all of that is totally related to us not being able to feel our emotions. I have a few questions popping up, which I'm going to answer in a minute. With regards, why is it so uncomfortable for parents to allow their children, like I said yesterday, I felt so uncomfortable. What is that about?
Yeah, I think it's, we come from generations where parenting has been about suppressing emotions. Most of us were parents with either authoritarian or a permissive parent. And what happens in those moments is that our whole childhoods come flooding to the surface, and all the feelings we felt as a child are there, and then we find it very hard to then give that to our children unless we become more conscious about it. There's an amazing man called Robin Grill, and he's written a book called Inner Child Journeys. I've just done their practitioner training. It was beautiful. And it's just this lovely process where we can kind of take those little triggers. My child was on the floor having a tantrum, and I really found it hard to listen to that. And then you think, when did I first feel that way? And kind of, digging down, and what did I need when I was that age? And the more you sort of give yourself what you didn't get, the more that you can then find it easier to listen to your child. But, we all had these experiences. I mean, I think I mentioned to you, when I was 5, my teacher put sellotape on my mouth in grade 1. And I still remember how traumatized I was, and how it makes my throat close up, and how scared I was. I was 5, and I think our children are here to help us also heal through those things that we may have gone through ourselves.
So my famous saying is, I believe everybody's doing the best they can with what they know. So it's definitely not a time for me to berate how I was raised, because I believe that my parents were literally amazing parents. And when they were smacking me, because that was totally normal in South Africa, they believed that if they didn't, I would end up to be a reprobate, or I would end up to be on the side of the road and highly unsuccessful. But so it is a very, very different way of thinking. And with regards, sorry, let's just go on to these questions. So Javivi says, not sure if I can ask a question. Absolutely, you can ask a question. But how do I handle the situation where the kids don't want to go home? They're crying. I'm presuming that it's a teacher. They're crying and they're clinging, and they want to stay with me 24/7.
Oh, that's so difficult if it's a teacher. I think you can use a lot of play at school. So, well, there's two things you can do. You can listen to the crying and just accept it. And Dr. Salter's got in her book, I think it's Cooperative and Connected, what you could say to a crying child. So things like, I'm here, I can stay with you for as long as you need. I'm listening to you, and just so that you really, really accept that crying and allow it to come out. And but they probably do need to go home, obviously, to their families, even if it's very hard for them to do that. But also at school, you can play some lovely, lovely separation games. So initiate like a whole class hide and seek. You can play games, connection games, like clapping games in the playground.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes,
She's
no.
saying that it's not. She's not a teacher. I was just presuming. It's just she's divorced, or he's divorced, and he's saying that when his kids go to their mom or whatever that looks like, then that's when it happens, which
So
is really tough.
It's really, really tough, and it's there's also a positive to look at it, and so for example, tonight. My two are in there. I'll be with them the whole day. And they were like, we don't want daddy's bedtime. We want mommy's bedtime. But actually, if you can listen to that crying and be there and accept it and just be there for it, you can help them also heal from that separation. Because sometimes it's a bit like that broken cookie. It's like an opportunity to heal for the separation that's going to happen. But also while you're at home, you can play loads of separation games. So I don't know how old they are, but older ones, you can just do some really cool hide and seek, which is a separation type of game, because every time you find them and they laugh, you're healing from that separation. And then also you can do just cool games, like if they're a little bit smaller, but even my 8-year-old likes this. So when they're not looking at you, and then suddenly they meet your eye, you go, oh, look, it's George. There you are. It's so good to see you. And then they look away again. You go, where's George gone? I can't find him anywhere. And then when he looks at you again, you're like, oh, there he is. Oh, yeah, the 6-year-old will love it. I saw this.
Yeah, he's saying that 6 and 12, yeah.
Yeah, and just connection time, I think is really, really beautiful. Dr. Salter suggests we play a special type of play with our children that we should do at least half an hour a week. But we actually did it every single day in lockdown, and it was phenomenal. And it's a one-on-one play with your children done in a very, very specific way. So basically you say, okay, the 6-year-old's turn. Hopefully the 12-year-old will understand now because she's a bit older. And you can say, this is, Mary's turn. And you spend 30 minutes and you give that child undivided attention. So they can do whatever they want to do. Your mobile phones are put away, you've gone to the toilet, you've had your cup of tea, and you just do whatever they want. I mean, I've done an hour of jumping on the trampoline, or, baking, or playing Playmobil or Sylvanians or whatever it is. So no screen time or anything. But that special time can be so, so healing, because in that time they might bring in a game that works through some of the little stress or trauma of being separated, or they might choose to play hide and go seek. I mean, it's such a big topic to talk about that play,
yeah, it is,
but maybe we could have a chat sometime just about that, Candace, because it's amazing.
I'd love to. I'm always looking for more topics, more interviews, and I would absolutely love to. So I know it is definitely more difficult when two parents are living in separate homes, because that is exactly what I am experiencing. However, I have had to shift my mindset as to when they are there, you equip them. And that's, I think, where the whole grit mindset comes in. The resilience mindsets, that you can only do what you can do. And then I'm very lucky, though, that I plant seeds, and then my ex is very, very willing to hear, and always willing to try new things and that kind of thing. So I think to be open to maybe having discussions with your exes. I know some people don't have that kind of a relationship. But it's more tricky when it's co-parenting and you're on completely different pages. Absolutely. So I know that we, Rebecca, are creatures. We are selfish. I don't care what anybody says. We are selfish creatures. And so this sounds like it's amazing for the kids. I want to know, how is this kind of parenting, how's it going to serve me? How is it going to benefit me as a mom?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I don't think it's easy to parent in this way. But yeah, I'm just thinking of the 3 reasons why children misbehave is just popping into my head. And I used to have this on my fridge when my daughter was little, and it really helped me because it helped me to think about how my children, why my children are behaving as they are, but it also helped me as a parent. And so my daughter, sorry, I'm getting all mixed up now. Hold on one second. So the 3 reasons why children misbehave are they have an unmet need, they lack information, or they have this accumulation of stress and trauma. So, they might be tired, they might be not have enough attention from you, they might feel disconnected. I think I mentioned to you when we chatted about the, this old saying, everybody goes, oh, they're just looking for attention. But actually, that's exactly what they need. Give your child attention and the behavior will disappear. So I think what it can really help us do is to then look at ourselves as well. So, they have this unmet need. Maybe they don't know some information about what's expected of them. Or sometimes we have this thing where we are supposed to we've told them once and they should know, but actually you need to tell them literally 5 million times sometimes. And actually that's a really good reason. They just lack information, and one scenario could be completely different to another scenario. I have an example with my daughter actually when she was about 6, those play dates where nobody wants to leave. And we had one of those, and I just said, listen, I can't do this every time. Like when a play date ends, we do need to leave. Like it has to happen.
We've all had one of those.
Yeah. And so she said, oh, Mum, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. Anyways, literally this next Saturday, 3 days later, we went to a completely different house, different child, and she loved this girl. They were playing and playing and playing. It was time to go. And I said, okay, it's time to go now. And then it was this like chase around the house. And so I eventually cornered her on the trampoline. And I said, you're doing that thing again. And she went, oh, am I? So I was like, yes.
It's making her aware. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
She just got off the trampoline and we went home. So I love that example because it's just, yes, she knew it, but that was a different scenario.
And how different is that? It's just a little reminder. As opposed to us getting so angry and irate. So this is a big passion for me, and that's exactly why I asked you the question: is what is in it for me? So
Yes.
you did speak about your own. You're going to learn so much about yourself. I believe that children are our biggest teachers. We think that we teach children, but I believe it's the complete opposite way around. And when it comes to aware parenting, we're going to go to the next steps at the end of this interview. But when it comes to aware parenting, it is very much about your own healing, your own growth, your own development. And when you start growing, when you start developing, and when you start to see the results, it does become quite addictive. So there is a little bit of a warning that comes with this. There's another question. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, I just wanted to say something about that. It is really lovely because I really see it with my two now after doing this for such a long time, like their willingness to help others and to do it without there's no reward at the end or no punishment or there's not going to be anyone you go home, oh, you were so amazing. In fact, it's a joke in our house because whenever somebody calls them good girl, we kind of look at each other and laugh. But it's kind of is rewarding in the sense that you feel connected to your children. And I think when you go down the route of more punishments and rewards, it just creates more disconnection. And yeah.
I'd love to make this even more practical because I'm very much about the how. So, I mean, it sounds in theory great. So we don't punish them, we don't reward them. But let's be honest, there's times when I'm late for work and my child doesn't want to brush their teeth, they don't want to put their shoes on, and I've got to do what I've got to do to get them to get in the car so that I can continue with my day. So, with regards to that, what is your advice?
So it's difficult, isn't it? But I think everybody, all the parents I support, when they do the play, I'm going to go into play again because it's just such a powerful, powerful thing for in our parenting. If you can just take a step back, as what do they say in the aeroplanes? Put your own oxygen mask on 1st. Take a step back, watch. This is taken from my dear friend Jürgen, who trained me to be a aware parenting teacher. Take a step back, breathe, and watch. And just take a moment. And actually, if you can just allow yourself to connect with them in a more playful way, you will get out that door a lot easier with less disconnection and more connection. So, things like my daughter at the moment, she doesn't want to get in the car without pretending that she is driving. So she's 5 and she gets in, she puts the windscreen wipers on and she's like this, and I have to get in the back seat and put on my and go, where are we going today? So I could not play that game. And I know she would have a massive meltdown, which is okay as well. We shouldn't stop our children from having meltdowns. Like, it's not about that. But actually, she just needs that in that moment. So I know if I play that for 1 minute, we'll go on our way. It's just something she needs to do at the moment. So it just creates more connection. Like, if you pick up their shoe, instead of going, I've got to leave it. We've all done it, and I do it. Of course, I'm not a perfect parent. Ask my children. And, get out of the house. I've got to leave. It's time to go. But if you can just be like, pick up the shoe and go, oh, no, I don't want to go on your foot. Oh, it's so stinky today.
Just the whole new board just changes the entire dynamics. Yes, I totally get it.
Pop them on your back and like gallop to the car together. Like, oh, come on, I'm the horse today. My name is, whatever, Paddy, and start galloping to the car. And you'll get there a lot better, a lot quicker, and more connected.
And I'm going to highlight this because I think it's literally come up in every single podcast, and I say it every time, and I think it's for effect. I use the words tend to self, tend to self, tend to self. When your child is not doing what you're expecting them to do not do anything until you have calmed down, until you have seen to yourself. And generally, that is a game changer on its own. So I find with my kids, if I just remove myself, count to 3, come back, repeat myself, generally by then they're already doing what I needed to do because I've come back with a different energy. The other thing is the kids are learning behavior. So this is like a big one for me. Like when they shout at me, then I've got to go back and go, wow, like I did that yesterday on the way out. So kids learn from example. So the more that we tend to ourselves, for example, the more that we notice our triggers, remove ourselves, count to 3, and then come and deal with it, they're going to learn to do that stuff, which is so, so powerful on its own.
Yeah.
And also, like when you're fighting and when you're driven and when you're triggered, you don't get the result that you're hoping for almost every time. Almost every time you're not creating what you want anyway. So that is a really big thing for me. So tending to self is something that I say every single time. And we've spoken about the importance of connection. And sometimes it takes 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of just stopping. It doesn't make you later.
No.
Stopping, looking the child in the eyes. What is it? Breathing. Okay, is that what you're saying? Okay, cool. Now let's go. Sometimes they just want to say something. They just want to be heard. So the connection thing, I feel, is a very good solution. Stop, tend to self, connect with the child, and then watch what happens. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, and also it links back to what I was saying about the 3 reasons why children misbehave. And I sort of said, and I didn't get onto it, about it linking to us. So the 3 reasons why we don't parent as we want to or overreact is because actually we have an unmet need. So maybe we haven't had enough connection time. Maybe we're tired. And so you meet your needs, and then it's much easier to support our children. Or we actually lack information. Maybe we don't actually know that the way that 5-year-old is behaving is pretty normal for a 5-year-old. And we just need to understand that. Or actually, it might be the 3rd reason that we have an accumulation of stuff going on in our lives, and we might need to phone a friend, we might need to go for a walk, we might need to do some exercise, something like that, so that we are really looking after ourselves and then better able to react to our children.
And just be kind to ourselves, and to just know we don't have to get it right all the time. And that brings me to the next thing. So as it is, as parents, we have pressure on ourselves. We put that pressure on ourselves from the day you give birth to your first child. Okay, so I need to get it right. I need to be a good mom. All that stuff is going on for forever. I look at Facebook groups every single day of, parents who are just not feeling like they're doing it right. They're not getting it right. So that's a big thing. So how do we take that pressure off ourselves? How do we, like, to just give ourselves a little bit of a break, and to shift this thing of, you don't need to get it perfect. Like, how do we do that?
I think it's really tending to ourselves, like you were saying, and getting the support. Because if you've had your own stress and trauma, it's going to be very hard when you learn a different way of doing stuff to not be hard on yourself. Because I know I find it extremely hard. But the only way I get through is, personally, I have a therapist, but it might not even be that. Like, having something like a listening partner can be so supportive, that you can share that stuff and you can, get it off your chest. And just being kind to yourself. There's an amazing lady called Dr. Christian Neff, and she has a website called Self-Compassion, and there's loads of like little meditations there. Little simple things like breathing and empathy for yourself. So you just take a deep breath and breathe in lots of love for yourself. And when you breathe out, you breathe love for others. And just, a couple of those in the moment can really, really help. I've also come across something called focusing, which just allows you to just accept where you are. Yep, there it is. Something new feels like I'm not good enough, or something in me is finding it really hard today, or whatever it is that works for you. But make sure you do it, because it's so easy to slip into the overwhelm. I've had a very overwhelming couple of weeks, actually, here. And there's lots of things that have happened, including a pandemic. And it's only these little things that really, really support me, going to the earth and standing on it and grounding. Or actually, Peter Levine, I mentioned earlier on, has a lovely exercise which is called orienting, which is really simple. You simply feel your feet on the floor, your body where it is. You have a look around where you are, and you kind of just allow something to stand out at you. So I've just seen this sort of orange pen over here. And as you notice that thing, you take a breath. You don't have to change it. And that is so powerful. It stimulates your vagus nerve. It helps you be present. Kind of these little tools that you can take on board, so that you can help yourselves in those moments to not feel the overwhelm, and reaching out.
I would really, really love to create a society where it's okay to not get it right. And it's not a shameful thing. Like, for me to go onto this podcast and go, oh my goodness, I lost it completely with my child. And why did I do that? Because I didn't tend to self. Okay, lesson learned. The next time I'm going to do this and this and this and this, because I don't think that we can learn if we're not open and honest, if we're not vulnerable, if we're not owning up to our stuff, if we're trying to cover it, and if we're ashamed of it. I really would love to create a society where we just, and then you slip off the horse, but you just get back on. And then when you are doing it right, to be able to go, wow, like, I handled that so well. Like, I can't believe I did that. My old me would have totally lost it, and I didn't. I totally didn't. They cleaned up their room. We played through the whole thing. It was the most beautiful experience, and that takes courage and that takes strength, and so that's a big thing for me. And I just feel compelled to say that we're not in control of our children. As much as what we think we're in control of our children, we're not in control of our children. We're not in control of our exes. We're not in control of our bosses. We're not in control of how people are, situations are. But we're fully in control of our own growth, our own personal development. And so if we could just shift that, and just, for me, the moment that I started to do my own personal development on myself every single day, all this other stuff became easier to do, because I shifted the focus from out to in. So that's a big thing for me. So can we answer some of these questions? Okay, first of all, the first one says, thank you, I've got great show. Thank you, Candace and Rebecca. And then there's somebody from the Fathers for Justice group which has said, can you give the name of the author and book of Jonathan Grill?
Oh, yes, Robin Grill, and it's called Inner Child Journeys.
Okay,
I don't think
Inner
I can
Child Journeys. Oh, let me type. So is it Robin Grill? Ribin?
Robinggrille.
And, sorry, the name of the book?
Inner Child Journeys. You can get it on Amazon if you can get Amazon.
Yes, okay, that's lovely. Thank you. And for some reason, they're saying, you can't post on this group. Okay, let's see if that went through. Oh, it did go through.
Cool.
Okay, and then the next thing that somebody was asking was, so Nimrod is asking, in shared parenting regime of conflicting parents, how to differentiate between the real true expression, emotion of the child and the instilled ideas or expressions by a targeting parent to another parent.
Is that when you are parenting in a conflicted way, is what you're saying?
I think that's conflicting, and to see if that's really like coming from the ex, or if it's really the child's emotions, or if it's something that they're kind of bringing home from.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to differentiate other than to be able to listen to those feelings, and just be present and to offer lots of connection and lots of play. And also for children to know that people do things differently, you know. I think that's just very natural, and it's been a very difficult thing for me to accept, you know, that I'm not co-parenting separately. We're parenting together in the same house, and we still do things differently. And, you know, me being my parenting like fanatic, it's very hard to sometimes accept that, but actually it is okay. And they bring as long as, you know, our children feel safe, and cared for and loved, there are going to be differences.
Mm-hmm. And then whoever posted that said it's actually, he's referring to in a house where there's parental alienation, which is a whole new topic on its own, isn't it? I would actually love to do a podcast on that on its own.
Yeah, I've done a course on parents and conflict, and it's I would just, as parents, try and get as much support as possible, family support, family therapy, and really try and heal that as much as possible for that child.
And then I've got this saying which says, like, just focus on what you're trying to create and don't give up. I know it's easier said than done, especially when you have been ousted out of the house and now you want to have a say and you don't really have a say. But it's that whole thing of the law of attraction, which says you focus on your problems, you get more problems. So to really just put it out there that you're going to get your kids, that you're going to have time with them. And then when you do, to just frickin' make it count. But these parents are dealing with the hectic things, Rebecca. It really, really is. It is challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying, to look after yourself, because if you are in a resourced place, you'll be able to support them even better.
Definitely, absolutely. Okay, I feel like we're coming to the end. So what are the next steps? So somebody's listened to this now and they're quite excited about this new way of thinking, and it sounds like something they want to know more about. How do they get hold of you from here on in?
So, well, my website is flourishingchildhood.com. And I offer workshops. In fact, I've got a 2-day workshop coming up quite soon where we look at the healing impact of crying, raging, and laughter in children. And that's really lovely because it's such with it being online now, it's so international, isn't it? And lovely. And then I also offer consultations and support with the aware parenting approach. If you want to find out more about aware parenting, you can go to awareparenting.com. And on there's a whole list of aware parenting teachers all around the world. Each person sort of becomes an instructor, but they bring their own flavor and essence to aware parenting. Okay,
that's amazing. So somebody just asked me to post the website. Can you just repeat it quickly? Awareparenting.com.
My one is flourishingchildhood.com, and Dr. Salters is awareparenting.com.
Flourishing childhood. My spelling skills are going to .com. Okay, that's the one. And awareparenting.
Awareparenting.com. And actually, there's a wonderful podcast called Aware Parenting Podcast. And I saw the name of one of your listeners is Fathers for Justice, South Africa. And there's two on fathers, which might be interesting.
Okay, great. That's stunning. If you can send that to me, I can post it and they can share it on their group because I've got that direct link. If you can just remember to send that to me, that'll be amazing.
Okay, cool.
And then just before we go, for those of you that don't know, I'm obviously the founder of Grit, Growing Resilience Within, and I work very closely with teachers and children. And it's all about equipping the children so that when they do have those days when there is somebody around that can't support them, like we've spoken about, that we've given them specific tools and skills for them to support themselves. Because I'm very much about becoming your own pillar of strength. And then my website is Grit Grow. I'm just going to put it here as well. .co.za. But mine's the best because it's .co.za. Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anything else just before you go? Thank you so much for your time, for your enthusiasm. From the second I got a hold of you, you were like, yes. There was no reservations. So thank you.
No, it's such a pleasure. I just love sharing this because when I came across Aware Parenting, it really shifted so much of what I believed, what I thought about, how I thought, and it led me down a rabbit hole of many interesting people like Gabor Mate and Peter Levine, and it's not easy to do it this way because you have to dig deep and you have to be willing to go on a healing journey yourself. And I think, I'm still on that journey, and, some days are really hard and some days are easier, but I think it's this lovely connection that I hope to, have forever with the girls.
I can see you're an amazing mom and that your passion just shines through. So thank you, and I'm sure we'll have you on here again.
I'd love to come back. Thanks, Candace.
Thanks, Rebecca. Have an amazing evening. Right. So thank you, Rebecca. That I really enjoyed that, and the comments, I can see people have also enjoyed it. I feel compelled to say to every single mom out there, to every single dad out there, that you need to know that you are doing a fantastic job. The fact that you're listening to this means that you care and that you're willing to grow and that you're willing to check in, which is something, it's so close to my heart. So it's time to take a step back and pat yourself on the back and say, well done, me. And for more of these podcasts every single Thursday at 7:30 South African time, please log in and through our Facebook or our YouTube. And thank you so much to Fathers for Justice and to everybody who's been on tonight. It's been a real treat. I'll see you next week.